Good morning. My name is Captain John. I live in Northwest Florida. I'm basically your average Joe American, and I see the events in the world unfolding, and so a couple years ago I decided that maybe I just need a little emergency plan. One of the things we have down here in Florida is hurricanes, so as a minimum we're all required to have a hurricane plan. You get a lot of warning with a hurricane, but not with necessarily all other disasters that are possible in this world. I've got a checklist here because the checklist is very important. It's something that you can look at, especially when a disaster occurs and panic starts to set in and you can't think straight and you don't know what to do. Well, the plan is going to tell you what to do, and it's going to tell you the order in which to do it. And without that plan, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. If you ever watch the news and some of these disasters that happen on TV, Katrina, fires, mudslides, no water in Toledo, the common thing that you see is people not having a plan, not having resources to live on, and they're all in panic and they don't know what to do, and they're waiting for the government to come in and help you. I don't think I want to be in that situation, and I don't think you want to be in that situation where you're waiting on the government to come and help you. I recall in Katrina, it was several weeks before the government finally got there to help them. As an American, with the resources we have available to us, you can pre-plan your resources and what you're going to do ahead of time and protect yourself until and if help comes. And nowadays, you can't always depend on that if. So I've got a checklist here because I don't want to forget to tell you nothing. And the things I have to tell you are pretty important. The next thing is, I don't want you changing the channel. You're about to enter a very serious journey with me on a very serious matter in serious times. What I'm going to try and do is give you the big picture. Before you can have a plan, you really need to know, what am I planning for? Why am I planning? You need to have an understanding of what's going on in the world, how your little universe fits in that world, and how that affects you. You know, we live in all different parts of the country and in the world, and so we all have different types of things that could happen to us. But there's a lot of commonality in all of this, which you're going to see in a little while. We live in grave times, and I'm asking you to wake up. I'm going to give you straight talk. There's not going to be no hype here, no fancy music, no fancy videos. It's going to be plain, simple facts. It's not your namby-pamby how-to video. There's plenty of them out there. They all got good information in them. They've got a lot of how to do things. This is not necessarily about how to do everything. It's about to make you think about what you do need to plan for and how to plan for it. So I want you to pay attention. Now, nobody's telling you this stuff, and it's going to be scary, but you need to know, because that's the only thing that's going to get you in motion. Now, I want to warn you right now, this training is going to be a little bit unsettable. It's going to upset you. When I talk to people, my friends and acquaintances, and I tell them things that could possibly happen, sometimes they don't even want to hear it. Well, that's fine. If you don't want to hear it, turn it off right now. But if you're the leader of your family, they're counting on you. They're counting on you to be strong and vigilant, and you're the one that's going to bring them through. So don't change the channel. Now, who are you? Are you a single person? You married? You got a family? You're taking care of a bunch of kids? You got the elderly in your home? You got friends that stay with you, or significant others? The reason you're looking at this video is because you must be the leader, because the followers aren't looking at this video. So your instructions are, I want you to take notes. Here's my notepad. I've been planning these things for several years, a lot of research. I got this notebook beside me all the time, updating it and referencing to it. You need the same notebook. Start now by taking notes as I talk to you. What is a plan? Well, the plan is a step of actions that you're going to take when your normal life is disrupted. And the pre-plans that you're going to take before things go bad. In crisis times, panic sets in. You cannot think straight. You need a script that tells you what to do and the order to do it in. So let's take a quick personal inventory. I asked you who you were. What's your mindset? How do you see the world? What do you believe in? Do you believe a plan is necessary? If you don't believe a plan is necessary, you won't do it. But if you watch the news and you see the things unfolding in this world and in this country, I believe you do think a plan is necessary. I'm going to give you a good plan. I'm going to give you a plan that's a reality that, even though it's going to be unsettling, it'll save your life. A box of flashlight batteries and 6 bottles of water, all that by itself is not going to save you. Now, you must have a partner in this endeavor. You got a wife, friend, parents. Are they in agreement with you that you need a plan? You can't do this all by yourself. You need help. So I hope that they'll help you. Well, what are your goals? What level of preparedness are you willing to take this to? I'm going to be talking to you about the levels of preparedness. Now, what do you got and what ain't you got? Talking about supplies. We know we need food, we need water, we need security, we need health, and we have disabilities. These are all things that we deal with on a daily basis. They're all kind of taken for granted right now because things are good. But in a disaster, these things don't come to you on a silver platter anymore. Now, I assume you have a house or an apartment, somewhere secure to live and to put things away to save for a bad day. What do you know and don't know? Talking about your skill sets. What are you good at? Now, some of you might be a jack of all trades. Some of you might not even know how to mow the lawn. Some of you might know electrical. Some of you might know carpentry. Some of you might know plumbing. Some of you might not know anything. So it's the whole spectrum of what do you know and what don't you know. You better know what you don't know, because that's what you got to build your skill sets on. Where are you mentally and physically? Are you strong? Are you courageous? Are you confident? Or are you afraid? Unconfident? Are you strong? Or are you injured? Are you disabled? These are all things that have to fit into your plan, because the plan's got to work for you. It might not work for me, but it's got to work for you. I can't do something that some younger, stronger person can do. So my plans work for me, what I'm able to do. Your plan's got to be the same. What are your passions? You got to be passionate about something. I'm passionate about fishing. I love fishing. I love hunting. Okay, I got a nice boat sitting over here. I also like carpenter work. You see the chicken coop back here I just built. I'm going to be picking up chickens in a few weeks because, in a disaster, when there's no food, it would be nice to go pick up some eggs out of that thing every few days. You got a family to care for. It might be just yourself, but you might have children. You might have small children. You might have teenage children that can help you. You might have babies. Very difficult situation when you got babies in a disaster. They can't help. You got elderly parents, elderly sisters and brothers that are staying with you. They can't help. You got to help them. What's the plan? How are you going to take care of them? Well, if you don't have a plan, you don't know. And you can do all this stuff, but I always talk about the fact that you have a faith. What do you believe in? Everybody should have a faith. Otherwise, you're on your own. If you don't think of it, it ain't going to come. So I encourage you to examine your heart and find a faith. I'm not telling you what faith to get. That's up to you and God. He did create this place. It's pretty awesome. It's the things that are in this world that aren't always so awesome. Yeah, it's people. Okay? But you and me, who are going to be prepared, we can make it better. We have to work together. Now, what's the goals of this training? Well, it's like anything that you're learning. You want to know why, you want to know what, how, when, where. You know, those are questions that when you ask them and then you answer them, they start becoming your plan. But before you make a plan, you got to realize a few things. Why would you plan at all? Well, in any kind of disaster, you need to eat, you need to drink, you need to sleep, you got to stay well, you're going to stay warm or cool, and you got to stay dry. That's got to be number one in your plan. And then, of course, you need to be protected from the elements, you need to be protected from injury, and you need to be protected from other people either invading or intruding on your property or person. Now, what are you planning for? Well, obviously, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You've seen the TV commercials about the day before. Today is the day before. I don't know what's going on tomorrow. So it's the unforeseen you're planning for. You know your area. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now, how do you make a plan? Well, you start out with pencil and paper. Don't put it on your computer, because your computer might not work. Paper and pencil, guaranteed to work. You can use the internet to research the what and the how to match your needs. Your needs are different than my needs. And of course, all of this is based on the considerations that I'm going to bring to you in this training. Now, when do you implement your plan? Well, it's kind of a silly question, but you need to look at the typical events in your area. If you live out in California, it sounds like earthquakes and forest fires. Pretty obvious out there. In Florida, it's hurricanes. You live out in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, it's tornadoes. You live up in North New York, could be blizzards. So everybody's got something going on. Texas right now has got a drought. California's got a drought. These are all disasters in the making. Are you planning for it? And there's a common thing through all of this. You're going to see that in a minute. Well, not only do you know what the disasters are that could possibly happen in your area, but how fast do those disasters unfold? I just saw in the news about the mudslides in California. They had about 10-minute warning before the mud came sliding down the mountain. That's not very long. Sometimes a tornado hits somebody, 0 warning. Well, you do have a warning because you got television. The television tells you what's going on around you. Pay attention to it. They tell you 15 minutes ahead of time if a tornado's coming. They tell you it's raining, you could possibly have mudslides. They tell you all these things in advance if you're paying attention. But how fast can you react? That's the key. Well, if you don't have a plan, you don't know how fast you can react. Now, where will your plan be implemented? Well, you don't know where you're going to be when these things hit. You might be home. You might be at work. You could be across town at Walmart. You could be on vacation at grandma's. You could be on a trip in China. These are all things to consider because a different plan for each situation. I work 37 miles from my home here. And if a situation came where I could not operate my car and I had to get home, how would I do it? Well, I got a plan, all right? But if you don't have a plan, you're going to be standing there at work wondering, well, how am I going to get home? You do need to get home because your family's back there waiting on you. And you can see the detail of what I'm talking to you about, and without this checklist, I could not just ramble around trying to think of it all. It's the same way in a disaster. You can't ramble around trying to think of what to do. You need a plan so that you can read it and it'll tell you what to do. And of course, when you are away from home, you need a plan. How am I going to get home? I often go to California on business trips. How would I get home? Well, maybe planes aren't flying. I have to take a train or rent a car. or a bus. I mean, those are things that you can have in your plan to immediately go see if that's an alternative. Now, there's some big questions you need to ask about any emergency, because the answers determine your actions. It's like any time, if I don't know the question, I don't know what to do. Now, this is serious stuff, but you think about the disasters you've seen in this world. Well, the first question is the event recoverable or is it unrecoverable? That's a pretty big picture. If I get hit by a tornado and my house is gone but my family's alive, that's recoverable. I can build another house. Okay? We have World War III and a nuclear war. Yeah, that's not so recoverable. That's one extreme to the other. Now, in any kind of disaster, will your home be lost? Well, in Hurricane Andrew, homes were lost. Tornadoes in Tuskegee, Alabama, homes were lost. Earthquakes in California, homes were lost. Firefires, homes were lost. Is that in your plan? What do you do if your home is lost? That's the question to ask. Another question is evacuation required? Do I stay in my home? Do I evacuate? We ask that all the time in Florida. There's a Cat 1 hurricane coming up the coast. It's not that serious. Most of us will stay home. The radio will even tell us to stay home. On the other hand, if there's a Hurricane Katrina coming up your doorstep, Cat 4 or Cat 5, you better evacuate. Well, where are you going? Your plan's going to tell you where you're going. But at the heat of the battle, you might not be able to think straight and know where you're going. And where are you going to stay in? You're going to stay in a hotel? You're going to go to a campground? You got any camping gear? You have a tent? Well, these are all things that in a disaster come in real handy. FEMA's not going to be there for days or weeks, and if they even come at all. I wouldn't count on it today. Now, in any kind of disaster, question to ask, is it short-term or long-term? Hey, a tornado is pretty short-term. It's over and done with. Hurricanes, over and done with. Now, the aftermath, the disaster is still going on. There's no food, there's no water, there's no sewage. So that's a long time. It could go on for weeks, if not months. That's a medium disaster. What if you had an earthquake where all infrastructure is gone? That's pretty long term. You don't have a job now. You don't have no income. You have no money now. What are you going to do now? You see why people panic? You see why you see them screaming on TV? Yeah, because they didn't plan for this. They don't know what to do. They don't have a script to look at. They have no resources stockpiled. And so they're on their own with nothing. And that's why you see them all screaming at the TV cameras. Any disaster, one of the major things that happens is there's no electricity. I want you to stop and think a minute. If I turned the lights off in your house today, and I said you couldn't have it back for a month, what would you do? What would be the results of that? How would you suffer with no electricity for a month? That'll get you thinking. Every disaster has that problem, no electricity. We get a thunderstorm around here and the power goes off. What are you going to do about it? Well, you have a plan. Your plan prepares ahead of time for it, tells you what to do when it happens. Now, in any emergency, is your life in danger? Well, I remember here early spring, they said a tornado was heading right for my house. About that time, I decided, I think my life is in danger. We got in the truck and we headed away. We waited till the storm passed, and then we came back home. Well, I already know that kind of thinking, so I knew what to do. But, don't sit at home watching the TV while the tornadoes come into your house and you're sitting there, well, what should we do? Is your life in danger? Yeah. Well, then either get in the basement or leave. And also, in any plan, who can help you? Maybe you're disabled. Maybe you're elderly. Maybe you don't have a car. Who can help you? That should be in your plan. You should plan ahead of time that you can call them and they'll come and help you. They're in your plan. You call Joni or Janie or Billy, and Billy and them, they'll come over and help you. It's in your plan. You don't have to worry about finding their phone number and you can't find it because you ain't used it. It's always been by memory. Now, any disaster plan has planning periods. Around here, if you're having a hurricane, you gotta have at least a 3-day hurricane evacuation kit. At least to get you over the storm so you can come back to your house in 3 days. That's a minimal interruption in your life and it's easily recoverable. Next stage of planning would be 3 weeks. I mean, you saw what happened to Katrina. It was flooding and it took a long time for power and water to be reestablished. So have a plan that goes out 3 weeks. Food, water, medical, all that sort of thing. Talk about more of that later here. And then, of course, that's recoverable. It's usually a localized event. Then, of course, the next period of time is a plan that covers months or years. We're talking about a catastrophic event. Is either national or global, and it may not be recoverable. In other words, things may never return to what they were. I mean, you look around the world that the people who live in refugee camps, I mean, look in Israel right now and Gaza, and those people's lives are forever destroyed. It'll be a long time before they recover from this war. The United States is not invulnerable to wars. Now, let's talk about the kind of disasters that you're preparing for. A disaster is where your normal life is disrupted and things aren't handed to you on a silver platter anymore. So here's a few of the things that could happen. It could be weather in general. I mean, it's too hot or too cold. You either don't have heat or you don't have air conditioning, and there's consequences to that. Earthquakes, fires, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, snow, mudslides, chemical spills, drought, big drought in Texas, they're running out of water, viruses, you hear about it all the time, flu viruses, you hear about it in the news right now, Ebola. Who knows what's going to happen there? I mean, you can only believe about half of what you hear on the news. It's either twice as bad or not as bad. I don't know which it is, but do you have a plan for it? EMP, what in the world's that? Electromagnetic pulse. Comes from the sun or a nuclear detonation. Wipes out all electronics. Consequently, there won't be no more electricity. Not for a long, long, long time. And it's not a secret. Everybody knows about it. Congress knows about the EMP. Our government knows about it. The bad guys especially know about it. And they sure like to use it on us. And if you ever go online and look at solar weather, they tell you every day what this percent of getting an M class or X class solar flare. You probably never heard of that, did you? Well, look up solar weather. It was only about a month ago that the X class solar flare missed us by the skin of our teeth. Could have destroyed all electricity on the planet. It's in the news now. Are you prepared for that? The sun revolving and the flares spewing from it is like a Russian roulette. Of course, you've heard of war. We've been in one for a long, long time. The bad guys get worse and worse, and we seem to be dropping more and more bombs every time one comes up. So, what are you going to do in a war? One of these wars is going to get here, to the homeland. And what are you going to do? I mean, I really don't want to be a victim. I'd rather be out in front of the problem. So you can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to be in front of the problem. I mean, I'm going down fighting before I'm going down and be a victim. And, we have the lovely terrorists out there and all their activities. Biological, chemical, nuclear, and of course we have our very beautiful Mexican border unprotected and all those people coming across that. And of course, you don't expect them to tell us the truth of what's going on there. But it's very dangerous. I mean, in reality, you could say our country's being invaded right now. It's only a matter of time between something bad happening. Now, here's the common issues that happen in every disaster. And this is where we're starting to get down to the brass tacks of what you got to do to pre-plan. But here's what happens in disasters and the things that you need to prevent your family from suffering from. Loss of electricity. Just about every disaster, the electric grid goes down. Hurricane, tornadoes, floods, forest fires, earthquakes, you name it, the electric goes down. Well, everything's downhill after that. And you take inventory on a piece of paper, all that can't happen when there's no electricity. And that'll wake you up. Loss of water. We can only live about 3 days with no water. So how much water do you have in the house? Do you know how to store up some water if you know a disaster is heading your way? And it's all common knowledge out there on the internet. They'll tell you how to do all that stuff. But I'm telling you to think about it. Loss of your shelter. You might lose your house in an earthquake, a forest fire, or a hurricane, or a tornado. So again, what are you going to do? Loss of heating and cooling. Well, if you lost power, you probably lost heating and cooling in many cases. Some of you have oil. But, you know, you can't run the blower without electricity. So even though you got oil heating, the blower doesn't work. Loss of food. Most of us only have about 2 weeks of food in the house. Well, it doesn't do you much good when you're in a 3-week disaster. Loss of sanitation. You live in the city. There's no power. The water doesn't work. How do you flush the toilet? Yeah, good question, huh? Well, if you've got some water, you can always use a bucket and flush the toilet. But if you don't have no water and you don't have a bucket and the power's out and they're not pumping water to your house from the water station, where are you going to the bathroom? And of course, you know, when I talk about sanitation, you got to stay clean. And whatever you're eating on, you got to clean it. Otherwise, you're going to get sick. So, you can see how things get out of control really fast. Loss of transportation. Hey, maybe your car's damaged. It doesn't work now. And you need to evacuate. Well, now what? Well, maybe there's a friend you can call because your car don't work and his does. And then it's in the plan to call them to help you. It's your neighbor. Medical treatment. Well, since electric's out and no one has electric anywhere, 911's not going to do you a lot of good because there's nobody coming and probably nobody answering the phone. And of course, you know, you have to worry about injuries, but sickness. Disasters do not pick good days. And someone at home could be sick. And now maybe you can't get them to the doctor or the emergency room. Roads are flooded out. You know, you got to deal with all these things. You know, if you know ahead of time what these things are, you can come up with contingencies on how to deal with them. And you won't be set into a horrible panic. You get your checklist out, you go to the part on Aunt Agnes is sick, and it tells you what to do, because you thought about it in a clear mind a long time ago. Loss of law enforcement. Can't call a sheriff. Somebody's banging on your door, they want your stuff. You can't call a sheriff because he ain't coming. They got their own problems. And of course that includes loss of security of your home and persons in the home. It's very important. Things to think about. I probably already woke you up by now. Well, we're going to get into some more heavy thinking here in a minute. Disaster priorities. See, a priority is the things you do in a certain order. Okay? Like, you know, you pay your bills before you go buy toys. That's a priority. If I don't pay my house payment, I'll have nowhere to play with my toys. Well, same in a disaster. There's certain things you got to do in a certain order, otherwise you're not going to make it. So you got to have a plan. That's number one thing. If you have stuff with no plan, you won't know what to do with the stuff. You got to have the checklist. That's what I'm reading here is a checklist. I know what to tell you because it's written down. I don't have to think in my head and ramble around. The plan is going to tell you what you need to have and what you need to do. Now, some of you live in the city, and some of you live out in the rural, out in the countryside. The city is going to present a complex set of problems that the folks out in the rural areas aren't going to have to deal with. Well, you need to know about it, because in the cities, okay, you don't got septic tanks, you don't got wells, so you don't have water, you don't have sanitation, power's out, you're in a mess. So what are you going to do? Well, with a clear mind, thinking about it months and years ahead of time, what you're going to do, when that time comes, and I hope it never does, but if it does, you get your checklist out and it says, you do this, this, and this, in this order, and you'll get through it. So, in a city situation, you got a lot more people, you got a lot less resources, and you got less security. There's rioting going on. You've seen it, I don't know how many times you've seen TV. There are people pushing trucks over, burning down buildings, they're looting, there's lawlessness going on. Gangs, vandalism, murder, robbery, rape, you name it. Another thing people don't think about, it comes a time when people can't feed their pets. They just let them out the door to fend for themselves. Well, those pets become gangs, and those gangs become very hungry. And then it becomes very dangerous. Animals get out of zoos. Wow. Well, when there's no power, there's nobody to watch them, things happen. Wild animals can get out of zoos. Essentially, people behavior, when things get out of their control, there's no water, there's no food, all good behavior starts to go downhill. And you'll notice the people with the plan have the best behavior because they're not panicking, because they have the stuff to do it with, they know what to do, and they know the order in which to do it. So your behavior is going to be a lot better than somebody down the street that has 3 rolls of toilet paper in the house, they got a week's worth of food because they live payday to payday, and they don't have no way of doing anything. They don't even have any water. They're going to panic. Their behavior is going to change. And pretty soon people will be doing anything they possibly can to feed their children. Okay, now, these following items are important. They're important that you take care of them in the order that I tell you. If you don't, you're going to miss something and things are going to get out of control again. You don't want things to get out of control. It's going to be really bad anyway, and so if you don't follow instructions, then things will get out of control when they could have stayed in control. The number one thing that you got to do when there's a disaster is make sure the security of you and your home is intact. If you don't have security, you cannot maintain control. That means you won't be able to look at a checklist. You won't be able to execute it because things will be out of control security-wise. Who knows what's going to happen? So security is the number one thing that you have to get a handle on in a disaster. Once you know that things are secure, you got your checklist in your hand, the next thing you got to do is treat the injured. You take a car accident. You can't start treating the injured till you get the intersection secured. You don't need more cars piling up on more cars and more people getting injured. So get the intersection secured, then treat the injured. And so that goes with this. The house is secure now, you've got it under control, you got to treat the injured. Because there could be injuries. In a tornado or a hurricane or a flash flood, there's going to be injuries. You got to treat them. Well, since you have a plan, you already know where all the first aid stuff is, and you know that's the second thing on your list to start working on. You don't have to worry about the third thing because you're on the second thing. So you don't have to worry about the third thing. It's on the list. They'll tell you what to do when you get there. All right, all the injured are taken care of now. The bleeding is stopped. The bones are set. They're treated for shock. You've kept them warm. Everybody's breathing, their heart's beating. All right? The life-threatening situation is under control. Next thing is water. Well, if you got a plan, you already got water, so it's not really a panic item because you already got water. The fourth thing is shelter. Is your shelter dry? Now, the roof's not leaking, the windows ain't all broken, the wall's not caved in from a tree falling on it. I mean, you gotta get the shelter in control. Hygiene. You can't afford to get sick. You can't afford to get an infection. So your hygiene is extremely important. You can't put off cleaning yourself just because there's a disaster. That's the worst thing you can possibly do. So you got to keep clean, brush your teeth, wash your body, because if you get sick, you can't help nobody. And pretty soon there'll be nobody to help you. Nobody really understands this. You got to have rest. You cannot stay up 24 hours a day trying to do everything. You're going to have help. And that means so you can get some rest. Because after you don't have rest, you don't start thinking clearly. You don't make good decisions. And then you're in trouble again. Bad decisions always lead to more trouble. Now you got to go back up the list because things are out of control again. So you need rest. You're the leader. You have to have an assistant leader. He takes over for you while you're resting. You need 4 hours on, 4 hours off, whatever the plan is. But you got to have rest. All right, food's way down on the list because you can live weeks without food. It's not to say food is not important. It is important. It keeps the body healthy, keeps the body thinking straight. So, but you won't die over it. But food is important. But remember, you got to secure, you got to have the injured taken care of, you got to make sure your water's secure, you got your shelter secure, you're cleaning yourself, you're getting rest, and okay, yeah, we got enough food. We got 3 weeks of food here. We'll figure out what to do after that. And of course, the power's out. Well, what do we do now? Well, in your pre-planning, you might say, well, you know, I have enough money, I could set up some solar power. Well, it takes a while to figure all that out and execute it and implement it. You can't just do it in a night and run down to Home Depot and go get all the solar stuff and set it up in an hour. It takes a while. It took me months here to set up solar power, understand how it works, what its limits were, and what I could do with it. So yeah, establish electricity. You got all these other things taken care of now. See if you can get your power back up. Maybe you do have solar panels. Maybe you got a generator. Maybe you've got, 50 gallons of gasoline stored. Okay, so power up the generator. Let's get it going. Things are under control. You got things under control now. Everybody's well. They're clean. They got food and water. The place is secure. Okay, you got power. It means you got lights. That doesn't mean you can watch TV and play video games. It means you got light. Okay, kind of fun to work in the dark. So at this point, you got a situation assessment. You sit down and you say, okay, where are we? Okay, the personal environment is now under control. How do we move forward? It might be 3 or 4 days before you get to this point. Well, you got to continue your protection. You need to set up security guards. You can't just go to bed and think that nothing's going to happen. You need security guards. Everybody take a 4-hour shift. Rotate them. What do you think they do in the military? You don't just think they all go to bed at 9 o'clock and leave the base unprotected, even though there's no war going on. No, because they're planning for the unforeseen. And so you got to do the same thing. So you need security guards. Continue your health and hygiene. You need to prevent injuries, prevent sickness, and prevent infection. Water, food, and rest. Very important. You need to continuously plan at this point in time how you're going to replenish your supplies. I don't know how you're going to do it, but your plan might tell you. If you don't have a plan, you won't have a clue. Well, you could go rob from the neighbors, you could go shoot them all and take all their stuff. That's usually the plan everybody else has. they just grab their guns and go shoot everybody and take everything. Well, I don't really want that to be your plan. But I do want it to be your plan to protect yourselves from their plan like that. Clothing and shoes. Wow, how would you like to go around with no shoes? Well, that's a really important thing, clothing and shoes. This is a time, maybe you're a week down the road, you feel at least you're not in an impending death situation, you need to start gathering resources. Well, those resources are on your plan. Things you need on a daily basis, and things you need to acquire and replenish. So start gathering resources. That doesn't mean going out shooting your neighbor and taking all his stuff. Okay, there might be homes around here that nobody lives there. Maybe there's something in there you could use. All right, and if you know nobody lives there, well, go over there and get it. They ain't gonna be back. And this is a situation where it looks like it might be long term. You got no choice. Establish a perimeter. You got to have a perimeter. You need to keep people outside of that perimeter. Whether it's your little house in suburbia or out on a farm somewhere, you got to have a perimeter. Okay? All right, Captain John, I'm back. Had to go inside. We had a severe thunderstorm, and so now I'm back outside. You can see my garden back here. About done for the season right now in tomatoes. Anyway, we were finishing up on your situation assessment, talking about having a perimeter on your property. That's extremely important. Without a perimeter, you cannot be assured of safety. So I want you to think about that. And from now on, after that, you're pretty much on one day at a time. Don't try to take on too much, because you're not going to be able to handle it. Take care of today's problems. Tomorrow's got plenty coming for you there. I'm going to review here. Basically, I've brought to your mind why you need a plan, what you need a plan for, and I've given you some questions to answer to fill in the details of your plan. Answer those questions. Make sure you write them all down that I've given you. Do the video over and over till you got it. Okay? Because remember, it's your life depends on executing a plan. All right? The better your plan, the better your chances. I hope I've got you in motion, and that you're not going to procrastinate anymore, and you're actually going to do it, because your family's counting on you. There is much to do, and no one can say how much time you have to do it. Just remember, today is the day before. I love y'all. God bless you. Captain John signing off.